is what I got. It's my count.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Jock NBA Show here for Awesemo. We appreciate you being with us. Happy New Year, if no one has told you that yet, but I hope they had. Otherwise, they've just been rude. With Geoff Ulrich, I'm Adam Kaufman. We got a busy NBA slate to handle. 11 games coming your way over the course of the evening tonight. Lineup, of course, all lineups and Jock Market and everything, stuff. Well, not Jock Market, but lineups will lock for your main slates at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Beauty of Jock Market, Geoff, obviously, is you can jump in at any time. You can get in with the in-game betting, whatever it is that appeals to you. If you see guys that are on a roll, you want to take advantage, buy shares, jump into it. And the beauty is there's a ton at work tonight, including some key guys coming back from COVID or COVID-related absences. For instance, Kyrie Irving is going to make his long-awaited season debut for the Nets tonight.
Yeah. Whoop-de-woo. I mean, I don't know how much I know you're pumped about it, but no.
I can't wait.
Yeah, you just can't wait. I mean,
we don't know. And at last I saw, by the way, we don't know if he's going to start, but he is going to play, quote unquote, a chunk, whatever that means.
Yeah. I mean, look, Kyrie, obviously it's good for the Nets long-term, but I don't know how much interest you have with him in Jock Market. I don't know. Maybe it's, he's projected okay, but I mean, it's not like, I don't know. I feel like, let other people take try and play the guessing game with Kyrie. I think there's too many other better targets out there tonight to really worry too much about him. Just because we don't know how much he's going to play.
So some of the studs that are available to you tonight, I always like to start the shows this way, just to run down the different options you've got. You've got Novak Djokovic, the tennis player. Play Novak Djokovic. He was just in the news about COVID this morning. In my head. Nick Jokic. Although you could see how those two would get related. Nick Jokic, Luka Doncic, so many itches around. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Domantas Sabonis. You got Joel Embiid, James Harden, Steph Curry, Bradley Beal, Trae Young, Kevin Durant, and then you get into like DeJounte Murray and SGA and Karl Anthony Towns, Jason Tatum, guys like that. But among all those names that I just mentioned, I would say the guy who was probably in the top spot, even though he was a bust and a half last night, screwed over a lot of people, that is Domantas Sabonis and his matchup on the other side of that Nets game. How are you feeling about him and the Pacers?
Yeah, I mean, the other side of the Nets game, it is pretty interesting. I mean, obviously you got a big team total there. Pacers 8-point underdogs, but it's always nice to buy into players when they're obviously getting like low sentiment and like you said, I mean, 39 minutes played, 29 fantasy points. I mean, it's just like it doesn't happen with Sabonis very often. That he tends to get that big a workload and not produce. He's typically like well over a fantasy point per minute, guys. So I think whenever you're getting low sentiment and it's a back-to-back, yeah, why not? Why not take a shot? Obviously, he's up there just in terms of where he is in the Jock Bar. We actually have him projected for, over his fair market value on Awesemo. And again, if you go to the Awesemo.com, the free Jock Market projections are up there. And I would definitely recommend checking out the site if you haven't already. But Sabonis rates out as, second highest player right now. And so he's a very worthwhile target. And again, I mean, I always say this, but you look at the history of a guy like Sabonis. Last night, minus 67 ROI, but he had positive ROI in the 4 starts before that, including one where he went off for he led the slate and he had a 72% ROI. So it's probably going to be a bounce back spot for Sabonis. You're probably gonna get him at low sentiment and lower prices in the IPO on Jock Market.
You just hit on it. So right now, he is second behind Nick Jokic, not obviously Novak Djokovic, who is he's at about 47 projected points, and $13.80 is his, again, projected fair IPO on Osmo. And obviously, Alex, the entire team, they do a great job at that. Right now on Jock Market, in terms of the live wagering or investing, if you will, Sabonis is $11.05. He is projected for even better, about 49 points. So what do you make of the discrepancy in terms of when you want to jump in?
Yeah, just in terms of like when you want to jump in on Sabonis versus
Right.
Jokic or
Sabonis specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sabonis, like the one thing you maybe have to fear here is just like a blowout, I mean, so you could wait and see, I guess. The problem is if like the Pacers keep it close early or even take the lead, I mean, there's probably not going to be any dip to buy, so to speak. So, and then again, your risk is kind of going up. So I think Sabonis is just fine to target pre-IPO because again, I think with all the big names returning and him coming off a low night, like I really don't think that his IPO will be as competitive as maybe you think it will be. So it should be. So I mean, a player like that, I'm fine just getting on right away. I think a lot of attention is going to be on the other side. And I mean, just to talk about the Nets a little bit quickly. I mean, we do have James Harden up there for sure tonight. He is, I think, fourth in the projections. Sorry, sixth in the projections, but still projecting really strongly. Durant's right behind him as well. You look at where those guys are just in terms of fair market value on Jock Market. I mean, they're both projected to be pretty strong plays. So especially Durant, actually, if we're kind of comparing the two, Durant almost projects like the better value right now. So you could get two pieces of this game, and I kind of like that idea. I know there's an 8-point spread, but the Nets are still on the road. The Pacers obviously. If they keep this game close, it's got a 224 total. I mean, stacking this game with a couple big stars isn't a bad idea.
So for the Nets specifically, I wouldn't be all that interested in any pregame investments. I want to get a look at what Durant is doing, what Harden's doing, in particular what Kyrie Irving's doing, and what all these guys are obviously doing together, sharing the floor for the first time this year, because the only guy that we know is going to be out is Joe Harris. Everybody else for Brooklyn's available. So, you really, to me, like game flow, situation, the way it's trending, all of that is just it's way more relevant than say a DFS kind of decision-making process where you got to lock a guy in and live with it however it goes. This is one of those advantageous opportunities for Brooklyn. As far as Indiana on the other side, what's the reason we keep talking about Sabonis obviously is just all the question marks going into this game as things stand right now, and there's going to be a lot of clarity on that in the hours to come. But at this moment, Geoff, you've got Malcolm Brogdon, Torrey Craig, Chris Duarte, Jeremy Lamb. All of these guys are game time decisions, and then as we know, like guys like Karis LeVert, TJ McConnell, TJ Warren, none of them are playing. They got a half dozen guys in protocols, but for that reason, all of these injury and COVID related questions going in, the two of the most popular guys tonight in terms of DFS ownership, and obviously I relate that to this because that just tells you, hey, they're in great spots. They're going to be, significantly owned tonight, or people are going to be investing heavily for Jock Market. Two guys that are expected to get a whole lot of run as things stand right now. Kiefer Sykes, who is, at the top, he's going to be in probably half the lineups tonight, depending on which guys get ruled in, ruled out. He was obviously great last night. You love to see a guy at whatever he is, 28, 29 years old, finally, garnering some attention in the NBA. And then right behind him, really, Dwayne Washington is another one. So how are you feeling about some of these cheaper cost guys for Indiana in particular?
Yeah, no, Kiefer Sykes is definitely like a player. It's pretty hard to fade, obviously. He was pretty productive in his last start as well, like you said, and he's going to be out there. I mean, it kind of becomes a little bit of a worse matchup, obviously, with the fact that Kyrie is playing for him, I think. But at the same time, these guys are just going to be on the floor so much. I would definitely prefer Sykes just because, again, I mean, he's been a little bit more productive. He's shown the spike game, but I think these players are kind of like, two fish in the same barrel kind of thing. I mean, they could definitely still get like 37 minutes again and not really produce like a high octane night, but they're so cheap on Jock Market that, I'm not sure that we should care. Their floors are so good. So definitely targets for Jock Market. And yeah, I mean, we still have these COVID situations, like you said, starting to get back to a little bit more normalcy with some of these stars being back, but like a team like Indiana, I mean, even though, we're talking about Sabonis, I mean, they have just so many spots that are going to be open up now. So Sykes is definitely a play. I mean, he's not going to be a secret or anything, but maybe if he starts slow, definitely a guy you could look to get into in game as well.
In the spirit of bigger names returning, we've got Jason Tatum coming back for the Celtics tonight after a 4-game COVID absence for him. As we know, he came back from COVID last year, a little bit slower, but he said last year's case was a lot more severe than what he dealt with this time around. You know, he had the inhaler and all of that. The Celtics in general, after at one point in time, not unlike a lot of these teams, had like a north of a dozen guys in protocols at one point. Now they're mostly healthy. So just a few minutes ago, Peyton Pritchard entered health and safety protocols. He's not going to play for Boston, but everybody else of note is available. Tatum's going to play, and his freedom is coming back. Robert Williams, who was probable, has announced as available. The young guys, Aaron Nesmith, Romeo Langford, they're available. So the only guy who is, you know, a rotational regular, at least of late, is Peyton Pritchard, who's not going to play. So how are you attacking Boston, given what, you know, we've seen what Tatum has done without Brown. We've seen what Brown has done without Tatum, but now they're both going to be on the floor, as well as the likes of Schroeder and Richardson and Smart and all these guys.
Yeah, I mean, like on a normal night where, you know, maybe there wasn't COVID outages, I mean, I still think it would be a pretty strong spot to target a Celtic or two. They're 7.5 point favorites at home with a 224 total attached. Like, they have a big implied team total here. So it's like, it's a pretty good spot for a guy like Tatum, right? Who does, you know, project out fairly well here. I mean, nothing crazy, but I mean, he's still a strong play. I don't know. I mean, I don't feel the need to get on any of these guys just because there are a few better spots, I feel like. So, you know, we still need to, I still think you need to really just, you know, emphasize the guys who are getting higher usage because of the outages and because of the shorter rotations. And right now, Boston, just as a team, is kind of in a spot where we don't really have those spots to target. I mean, it doesn't mean Tatum or Brown could still go off here. And maybe you take a shot with Brown, just because, you know, like you said, obviously coming off a massive night, but with Tatum coming off the bout of COVID, I think Jaylen Brown probably makes sense here. But it's not a player you necessarily need to go out of your way. Now, if there's a cheap IPO and you want to throw in some bids, I think Jaylen Brown's a good target because, like I said, there's potential for a lot of points here from the Celtics. It's just the usage isn't going to be as concentrated as in other spots tonight. So
for San Antonio, obviously the Spurs on the other side of that game have some absences. There's no DeJounte Murray. There's no Lonnie Walker. There's no Doug McDermott. Yeah. You know, front of the line to get a little piece of Devin Vassell tonight.
Vassell, okay. I mean, yeah, that's interesting. I was gonna just look at the top two guys, but I mean, you could definitely go cheap there. I mean, there's a little bit of potential. I mean, you know, a couple games ago, and he's not quite like a point per minute guy, but he's pretty cheap. He's probably going to be very not a popular name. Like I think like the other names we've talked about, like with Indiana, especially going to soak up a lot of like kind of the value options. But Vassell's, yeah, he's gonna be out there. He's gonna play big minutes. Not the greatest matchup, so you worry a little bit about that. I was thinking more, if I'm targeting this game, probably just going up to like Podol or who again is like just a very high end terms of like fantasy like points per minute guy. So I definitely like Jakob Podol in the spot. I think he'll get good usage just because of some of the outages as well. And Derek White is actually in play too. Again, it's not like the greatest matchup against the Celtics, but we do have a shortened bench here, and I think that counts for more than anything. So yeah, the Spurs are kind of like a low sentiment play. I think my favorite is probably Jakob Podol, but you know, guys like Vassell and even Derek White definitely in play. They're going to play bigger minutes. The usage is going to be there. And there's lots of spots like this on the slate where, you know, the news is going to other spots. You know, Indiana's got some high end value guys. You got Kyrie back, Doncic back, obviously Djokovic, but there's like all these kind of like medium spots like San Antonio and even the Celtics in there where I mean, you know, there's still opportunity. There's just still tons of opportunity in like every game, it feels like.
You just did the Djokovic thing too. It's contagious. I've spread it to you.
No, I mean, you started it.
I did.
I watch tennis, so I'm not gonna.
Some of the later games are, and we can still do more with the early games. We've got another 10, 12 minutes, but some of the later games I want to make sure we get to because they're pretty interesting on the injury front. Starting with Miami, obviously there's no Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Dwayne Dedmon, Markieff Morris, Victor Oladipo, Duncan Robinson. All these guys are out for Miami. Do you have to load up on Tyler Hero?
Yeah, and again, I mean, this is a player who you know, we talked about these being nice spots for other guys, but yeah, Tyler Hero. No Jimmy Butler. Like, it's just, I mean, we're going to see big usage from him again. I mean, Portland again, you know, Damian Lillard out, but it really just comes down to popularity with Tyler Hero. Like he doesn't have the high end, you know, points per minute of some of these other guys. Like I would even say like a guy like Saddiq Bey, I'd rather go towards right now than Tyler Hero. I mean, it's fine. You look at the spot for Miami. The Trailblazers aren't going to fear anyone, but this game doesn't have like a huge point total. It's supposed to be close. So it's not that I don't like Tyler Hero. I just worry about what the overall sentiment is and how popular he's going to be, because this is a spot where we've seen, he's been a fairly consistent producer from a floor perspective, but the upside nights haven't necessarily been there. Like, again, you go back to his Jock Market performance. He's actually negative ROI 3 games in a row, like not good ranks. He's getting minutes, but like the upside necessarily just hasn't really been there with Tyler Hero. I do think like it's possible that eventually he puts in one, but the long-term performance from Hero, it really hasn't been good. Whereas you go to a guy like Saddiq Bey, who over like the same, the same kind of period, he's got 2 performances of over 150% ROI return on Jock Market. He's returned positive ROI in his last 3 games on Jock Market. I just think there's players out there at the same range as Tyler Hero. He's just been more consistent. So you like the spot, you like the usage, but I'd like, from a fantasy perspective, he's not necessarily efficient enough to, I think, warrant like what he's going to go for in the IPOs. With
so many big names out in that game specifically, there are just some intriguing plays, beyond Hero, obviously. Yeah. Caleb Martin is going to garner a lot tonight. You can go down to like, Kyle Guy, who's not just a guy tonight. He's in a good spot. PJ Tucker, absolutely. You could look at Omer. You could look at Kyle Lowry, because on the other side with Portland, it feels like everyone without Damian Lillard, without CJ McCollum, all of a sudden, like Yusuf Nurkic, great spot. Anthony Simons, great spot. Nasir Little, Robert Covington, great spots. So is this just a game you're really going to focus in on in general?
I think it's actually more on the Portland side. I'm again, Miami. I mean, Miami's weird. I mean, they still seem to just spread it around enough that like maybe like you don't get that big huge game from anyone, where even Kyle Lowry is like they're nice games, but just the way their offense rotates, it feels like we get Tucker making some threes out there and doing some things, and then Hero scores a bit, but like nobody really produces the big game. I think there's more opportunity on the Portland side. Nurkic is like another guy, kind of like Jakob Poeltl, can really go off, but I think Poeltl is kind of a better target if we're going there. I kind of like going with a guy like Covington, or maybe even just taking Norm Powell. I'm not sure how popular like the Trailblazers will be, just because they are still underdogs in this spot. This game doesn't have like a monster total like say Atlanta, Sacramento, or anything like that. But I think there's opportunity there, with just going up against a depleted Miami squad. So not like the favorite target, but I definitely think that there's more opportunity here on the Portland side to get a guy who could potentially get you like a really high ROI return on the night.
What's your approach with Utah? Is it a lot of wait and see, given that, right now, again, 10 o'clock Eastern is tipped for that one. So we're almost 9 hours away. And as of right now, Donovan Mitchell, Hassan Whiteside, Royce O'Neal, Rudy Gobert, Jordan Clarkson, Bojan Bogdanovic, all these guys are game time decisions. The only guy that we know is out is Joe Ingles right now. So what's your approach?
Yeah, I mean, I basically looked at this game. I just kind of put an X through it, because I mean, we have a short show. So I mean, like, we could probably talk about this game for, eons, just because of all the question marks and like the potential scenarios where one guy plays, another guy doesn't. But yeah, it sucks, because I mean, like, it's the Nuggets and the Jazz, and like we could easily get like a really high scoring game here, close. Tons of fantasy points from a couple of these guys, but I don't know what to tell you about the Utah side, man. I mean, I don't know who's going to play. I mean, it's, again, we could run through a few different scenarios. Like, I think Rudy Gobert is definitely like a player I'd have interest in. I mean, one thing about like these question mark guys, I mean, there's a lot of people like me who will just write this game off. So if Gobert is out there, I mean, he's going to play big minutes, obviously, against Denver with Jokic. So, yeah, I think Gobert is like the guy I would try and get in on a low sentiment target. But, even guys like Clarkson and Bogdanovic, man, I mean, if we're expecting this to be like a close, higher scoring game, I mean, one of those guys could easily have, just go off from like a shooting perspective as well. And you mentioned like Ingles is the guy who we know is out. So those two players specifically, and I think Bogdanovic is probably my favorite, if he plays, we'll get the biggest bump. So yeah, you can still look for Utah, but obviously we can't make like set in stone positions right now. The best thing would be like, say Clarkson is out as well. Then you could really just pile in on Bogdanovic. So this is a game to really watch and really just wait up until lock, because there will be opportunity. It's just, we don't really know where the opportunity is going to be specifically.
Hit the like, hit the subscribe button on the Awesemo YouTube page if you're watching along with us. We appreciate you, obviously, for being along, and want to remind you, you can ring in the new year with 2 incredible offers on Awesemo Plus Platinum. For only $20, you can get full access to all Awesemo Plus tools and data just 22 days using promo code 2022. That's 2022. Of course, the new year. If you're looking to take down all the slates all year long, that's okay. Use the promo code. It is happy22 for 20% off a year of Awesemo Plus Platinum. 2 great deals for access to everything you need, including player projections, ownership projections, lineup builder, boom bust tool, and so much more. The offers, they end January 7th at 11:59 Central Time PM. Coming up, obviously. Get locked in before it's too late. Again, promo code is 2022 for 22 days of of all that I mentioned there with the promo code 2022 for all the Awesemo Plus tools. Then of course, happy 22 for a full year of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Visit awesemo.com/promos or follow the links in the description below to activate. I have a chance to tell you more about that when I'm on with Aaron Berg a little bit later, talking NBA in a couple hours as well. But in the few minutes we have left here talking Jock Market, Geoff, I've sort of run the show, told you which games to look at, but what's jumped out at you?
Yeah, no, obviously it's another just crazy night in a lot of ways. I think that one area like we could definitely talk about a little bit is just, what's going on with the Bucks. Obviously they have some big names back, but there's a lot of players still out for them. Connaughton, Grayson Allen. So Brooks Lopez, like they have their big names back, but the rotation tonight is going to be insanely condensed. I think that helps a guy like Bobby Portis, who is really going up against Toronto, who allowed Poodle, a guy I've mentioned like 5 times already, to have a big night recently. And I think it's a really good matchup for potentially Bobby Portis. He should play big minutes. He's always been like a pretty efficient fantasy producer. Guy like George Hill too could be interesting. So that's one spot I'd look at. And like, you could realistically, I know all the studs are there for Milwaukee, but like, there's no harm in even just like paying up for Giannis in this spot. We have him projected, just behind Sabonis, but he's definitely projecting over his like fair market on Awesemo. I feel like with people, the way people might approach this slate with some other names back and they're saying, oh, well, everyone's back from Milwaukee. Well, he's going to play like 40 minutes because he's pretty much going to have to. So maybe not 40, but, close to it. So I think Milwaukee's a really interesting spot as well. And you just look at that game again, pretty nice implied team total there for Milwaukee as minus 8-point favorites and a big over under at 225.5. So lots of spots like that out tonight where there's pretty solid favorites, like teams expected to score a bunch of points. The 76ers is another one. You've got some, team playing better, but what about a guy like Seth Curry? There's a few, there we go. Mike Awesemo, our producer, repping the 76ers, but
sure.
So the 76ers is another team. I think there's just a lot of potential for fantasy points there, and Curry playing well. Just might be one of those value targets that kind of goes under the radar here.
In the spirit of value to, kind of to mid-tier, no studs here that I'm going to mention. Some guys we've already talked about, some we have not, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to rattle them off. You tell me your couple favorites in the mix before we get out of here. Christian Wood, Anthony Simons, Nasir Little, Trey Lyles, Kiefer Sykes, Caleb Martin, Devin Vassell, Dwayne Washington, Maxi Kleber, Raul Neto, Rudy Gay, Killian Hayes. Of that group, and by the way, go back on YouTube, scroll back for what I just said, rattle them off. They're all in great spots tonight, but who do you really like?
Oh man, half of those guys, do they even exist? Are they even do they play in the league?
They really exist. They're not on hardship deals or anything. They really play.
We I know we mentioned Caleb Martin briefly already, but I do think it's a good spot for him. Kiefer Sykes, he's going to be popular, but again, I just like, I definitely still like trying to get a piece of him, and definitely would be like a top value play. I know that's the easy answer. Everyone knows Kiefer Sykes is playing, but I think those are kind of like the two main guys that you rattled off there that I like. Yeah. Christian Wood is always a guy we see. He seems to always be on the slate when we're on. But I mean, I think that's an interesting target too. I mean, Houston is just so like talent deficient that he kind of just gets forgotten about. And, you know, he's playing Washington tonight. Should be fast paced. Not like Washington is a team that isn't capable, that you know, they're just bad defensively. So I feel like there's a lot of points going to be up for grabs there. And it's got one of the highest projected totals, second highest on the slate actually as well. So I think Wood is kind of like always a good target just from the sort of garbage time or fact that, you know, Houston is always going to be playing from behind kind of thing. And again, I just want to bring up quickly his return on investment here on Jock Market. But, you know, he's had a couple down. He's actually been kind of bad lately, but I do kind of like this spot for him because I know that game, another one you kind of want to talk about, but Bradley Beal on the other side, if you want to stack it, you think maybe that game's going to be a little closer, you could go with Beal and Christian Wood.
I'm just disappointed. This is, you know, like you said, we always talk about Christian Wood. He's always on the slate. His teammate, Şengün, who we always talk about, we always celebrate, he's out tonight. He's unavailable. So, you know, may he rest.
Maybe Christian Wood can get off the snide here because he actually hasn't been that good of late, but you know, just from a return on investment standpoint. But you know, definitely feels like a good spot. He is a player who's gone off a couple times. You know, last month he had a couple top 5 finishes on Jock Market, so potential's there. But
we got a few more shows coming your way on the Osmo YouTube page today. I will be with Aaron Berg for the Yahoo NBA Wednesday Night Live show. It is at 4 o'clock, 2.5 hours from now. Then at 4:45, NBA Deeper Dive until 6. That'll be Alex and Bearded Adam. Make sure you congratulate Alex on winning the million for the first time. That's a big deal. Pretty good when your boss takes down the Millie Maker. Greg and Eric, 6 o'clock, NBA Live before lock. And then 8 o'clock to 9 tonight, you have NBA, or rather PGA Live before lock. It will be Eric and Ben. Golf is really near and dear to Geoff's heart. He won't be on that show, but he will probably be watching and tailing it and in the comments and critiquing. So join him for that. That should be a good time. We thank you all for hanging out here with us. Moose and I will be back with you for, of course, the Jock Market NBA show every Wednesday, 1 o'clock Eastern time. Do join us on into 2022. Thank you. Thanks to Mike Awesemo, our producer, for getting the job done. I can't say I support his Sixers, but I do support the hell out of him. Thanks, Geoff. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.